Hey everyone, Wacky here. Welcome you back for our SDS draft recap, our season recap, if you will. Um, this is just kind of a video where I felt the need. I have to get out my thoughts about this season. If you haven't watched our finals game yet, please watch that first and come back after. I'll give you like 3 seconds to do that. Um, okay, so I'm assuming you guys watched it now. Um, We end up winning, surprisingly. This is just one of these. It was one of those seasons where I was like, I'm not even gonna make playoffs after I lost like 5 games in a row, and it wasn't looking great for me. And my playoffs round was really hard, like Circle into Beige into uh, DJ, all of them much better than I am, likely. I mean, judging people by skill is pretty hard, honestly, because this is Pokemon after all. Like, you can get RNG'd, you can have bad matchups, literally anything can happen. And I mean, this team came out on top, surprisingly. I came in, I didn't really think this was a championship team, but I mean, just looking at my top two mons, Torn, Mega Scissor, those are both like really good round one picks, and them on the same team. I mean, they do a lot of the same things, just with like different typings and like different sets they can run, like Swords Dance, Scissor, Nasty Plot, Torn. But like both of them, like they're pretty good at clicking like Knock, U-turn, Defog, um, and then like Hydreigon was a pretty good Specs killer, um, or Scarf. I think most of its kills I think were Scarf. And like Deoxys is pretty good at like Spike Stack or like Teleport. Vaporeon is pretty good at Wishing, being a good fat water. Weezing was pretty good at defogging, clicking aromatherapy, Strange, Steam, Flamethrower, Pain Split. Marowak was pretty good at coming in, getting up rocks, and then threatening things out with Shadow Bone or Poltergeist and Flare Blitz or Fire Punch. Also being a really funny wall at times, and then there was like Chestnut that's pretty good at like stacking spikes and being a pretty fat grass that pretty much shits all over a bunch of ground types. Then there's like Heliusk that's pretty fast. It can do a lot of weird stuff like Glare and has pretty good coverage with like Surf. And then there's Sandslash that can like rapid spin and uh, be Sandslash, I guess. And then I wanted to give an honorable mention to Politoed and Esprit because they did actually come to games. Like Politoed came to 2 games as water absorbed for both of them rather than being Drizzle. But I mean, it did its job. I think Politoed single-handedly won me week one. And then Mesprit came in I think week 1 or 2 and clicked like Dazzling Gleam or something, and then it died to crit. But I mean, I wanted to get those out of the way. Obviously, they didn't really do too much. Although, in my opinion, I think Politoed did a lot more than I think probably my worst 2 mons this season. I guess speaking of that, the way I kind of want to go about this was I want to talk about each team member individually, but I wanted to go from like best to worst, or worst to best rather. So I guess we're gonna start off with Sandslash. I mean, it came to a game. It didn't really do too much, but it pretty much broke, I think, a Rotom, and it annoyed a Talonflame for like a little bit. So, I mean, I really can't say all too much about it because that's really all it did. I think I clicked like Rapid Spin, even though there was no hazards up. It really just didn't have a lot of chances to shine, especially because it's not on a sand team. It's just kind of a low tier ground type that fit our team because I kind of wanted some heat on the team like Marowak instead of having a good ground type like Palisand or something. Like, Palisand could have been great if my tier list wasn't butt cheeks. Like, I think Vaporeon, Galarian Weezing, Marowak was pretty overpriced, and that could have been enough points for me to actually get, like, Palisand, but, you know, it's kind of whatever. Season is what it is. That's kind of all it did, and I can't say it was horrible. It just didn't really come to games because everything else I had was better. Although I think I wanted to bring it to a few other games, it just couldn't fit in. That's all I can really say about Sandslash. I think next I want to talk about Chestnut. Unfortunately, my mascot pick did nothing this season. It came to more games than Sandslash, and it probably was out like one more turn than Sandslash was. But if I can remember, Chestnut got crit ice beamed into died by sand, and then other games that either just like didn't touch the field or it got killed. I think Tapu Fini 1v1'd it, but if I ran like any attack in Chestnut would have done something. But it only came to 3 games. It just didn't really have the best matchups, and like even when it came to games, it just didn't do what it was supposed to, because either I lost the game or it got crit and died, or it just didn't come out because other mons just did its work for it. But overall, like it's not a bad mon at all. It's by far not a horrible mon. Next, I want to say Weezing, Galarian Weezing. I don't know. I drafted it thinking it was gonna come to like a lot of games and just be like fat. It did its job, but I don't really think Galarian Weezing was that memorable as a team member. It did really well week 1, and week 2. I mean, it sacrificed itself to like Melmetal, but it did its job pretty well, honestly. It went ahead and clicked Strange Steam on a Garchomp that set up on it. Yeah, it did pretty well, honestly. It just wasn't very memorable, and I think other team members deserve more recognition. So I think next I want to say Deoxys Defense. And not that Deoxys was a bad mon, it just didn't really do that much this season. I think most of the part was because I wasn't running the right sets. Like, if I were to run, and I'm actually going to go with Polytoad Whisper because those were just honorable mentions. This is our team. And so let's see. It just kind of clicked Teleport, Toxic, Recover, Nightshade. Although I don't know why I wasn't running Seismic Toss, because I think Seismic Toss would have been a little bit safer, but it did. I think I ran Taunt like twice. It did its job. It's just another mon that wasn't super memorable to use, and I feel like other mons could have done its job all the same, like Uxie or something like that. But I think Deoxys, it did work, and it was pretty fun to use. It was really fat. I don't think I ran spikes like ever on it, and if I did, I didn't really click spikes, which was unfortunate. But I mean, it's Deoxys Defense. You really can't go wrong drafting it. Let's see. Next, I want to say Mega Scissor. It might be kind of weird to say Mega Scissor before I say like Heliusk or Marowak, but like Scissor just didn't really do anything this season. I think most of the games it came to, it just clicked U-turn once, and then all the other mons did the work. Like, if I were to say what mons did all the work for me this season, I'm gonna say like Heliusk, Marowak, Vaporeon, and Hydreigon. Somewhat torn, but like even then. But I mean, it did its job pretty well. I mean, it pretty much clicked U-turn roost. I even ran defog some weeks because I figured Torn T running offense was a lot better for me. And like, as much as I want to say Scissor's not a good defogger, it actually did pretty well running defog for me. And did pretty well walling some things that otherwise I would have struggled with. And it was pretty good at revenge killing too. It did pretty well in what do I call it? It did pretty well in playoffs. Like before playoffs, I think it had like 2 or 3 kills, and then it ended up with like 7. Which was a lot less than Heliusk actually, and Vaporeon. I think Mega Scissor was overall like my 5th place on the kill board. I think it was Vaporeon, and then it was Hydreigon and Torn, and then Heliusk, and Hydreigon was somewhere in there. And then Mega Scissor, and then Marowak, Weezing, Deoxys, Sandslash, and Chestnut. Sandslash and Chestnut, of course, got 0 kills all season because they suck. I'm just kidding. Who was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about Scissor. That's kind of all I have to say about Scissor. Just didn't really do too much this season, and compared to other times I've used Mega Scissor, it just was pretty underwhelming. It didn't even come to every game. I expected it to come to a lot more games, but honestly, it only came to like, it missed out on like 4 games, which I think is a lot for a mon of its caliber. Next, I did actually try recording this a different time, but for some reason my voice just didn't want to work with me. Originally I put Torn next, but now I think about it more, I want to say Marowak. Reason I want to say Marowak is because, yeah, Marowak came to like 5 games, and every game it came to, it did its job, except for I think 1 or 2 games, and one was because of the forfeit, and then the other one, it just, I played it wrong, I want to say. I kind of forgot Megalopoly was like scrappy, and I mean, like, it kicked itself in the face, but Marowak wasn't really checking it. But it did really well and was really fun to use, and honestly, I love that I was able to play Marowak so offensively. Like, I just brought it in on mons without clicking like the U-turn or teleport into it. I just like hard switched it in on things, and it did its job even then. So I really can't say too much bad about it. It's just pretty hard to use. And most of the matches it came to were like pretty early in the season, so I went into the season thinking Marowak was like really, really good. And then once I stopped kind of using it, I'm like, it's not like the best thing ever, but it was really fun, and it's definitely a mon I'd probably draft again. As like a pretty good offensive fire, offensive ghost, and it could even run like defensive, like it walled stuff like Vikavolt, Galvantula, Victini. So it's pretty funny in that kind of sense, but I really can't say it's any better than, I think, what, the last 4? Yeah, I think we're on our last 4. I'm gonna say Torn next. Torn was the only mon this season that came through every game, and I mean, it kind of did work, but I want to say it really only did well in like a few games where it was pretty good at regenerating and clicking U-turn. I want to say every time I tried setup Torn, it just didn't do anything at all, unfortunately. But it's still Torn T, it still clicks Hurricane, it still misses Hurricanes, still clicks U-turn, it still defogs, it can still nasty plot Heat Wave. I think I ran Sludge Bomb once. It did pretty well in most of the games it came to, except for finals, because finals it was sacked, which was stupid of me, because I could have I could have saved me from sacking Torn, but it's fine. Um, so we got 3 mons left. I'm going to say Heliusk. Um, and Heliusk, I would have said Heliusk was like around like Galarian Weezing level of usefulness this season until I got the playoffs. Like Helios popped off in playoffs, honestly. It got like what, 5, 6 kills in playoffs. Where like before it came in to playoffs with like 2 kills, and those were from like one game. It also didn't really come to that many games before playoffs. Um, but I guess it's kind of like that playoff syndrome where like that one low tier you used like once all seasons just comes to every game in playoffs. And that's kind of what Helios did. Although I wouldn't really consider it a low tier mon. I consider it like low mid tier. But um, this was one of those mons where you could ask a lot of people. I almost drafted Manectric instead of Helios, and I almost drafted I think like Audino. It was like Audino or like a tongue or something. Kangaskhan maybe. But like I would have rather had Manectric and Audino than Heliusk, and I'm glad I ended up sticking with Heliusk. Um, it just did the thing in playoffs. It just killed things. Against Circle, it just came in and tanked hits, and then Volt switched out or clicked Dark Pulse. Unfortunately, it didn't get any like flinches because I think a flinch with Dark Pulse would have meant Helios kind of just like 6-0'd, but um, not 6-0, but it would have done pretty well, I think. Um, that's all I can really say about it. I mean, it just did Helios things. It clicked Lair, Surf, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Dark Pulse, Hyper Voice. I do want to say though, I probably ran the wrong sets a lot of the time. Like, I think if I ran Specs versus Charles, Helios would have been probably my kill leader. Um, but unfortunately, it wasn't, and we make mistakes when we build, and that's just kind of how the game is. But anyways, we got 2 mons left. I'm gonna say Hydreigon next. Um, honestly, it's kind of weird that I rate Hydreigon so high. Here, it just every game it came to, it just did what I wanted it to do, except for in finals. In finals, Torn and Hydra were like the most useless things ever, and like finals was the time where Mega Scissor finally popped off. um, because Mega Scizor, I mean, um, it would have just killed his last 2 mons before he forfeit. So that was a +2 for Scissor. Anyway. And then let's see. Hydreigon is just really good at most of what I remember from running Hydreigon was Scarf or Specs. I don't think I actually ran Dragon Dance. I don't think I ran Nasty Plot. If I did run Nasty Plot, I didn't click it, or Hydreigon just didn't do anything. But I thought it was really fun to use. It's definitely a mon I would definitely draft Hydreigon again. And last, and certainly not least, our MVP this season, Vaporeon. I'm so glad I dropped Politoed for Vaporeon. As much as I thought Politoed was like the best thing ever when I was using it, it just came in, clicked Wish, it just clicked Scald, and Flip Turn, and Heal Bell, and Haze, and Toxic. And like, that's all you need on Vaporeon. It just comes in, takes every hit. Even though obviously its defense is like 60, it's still pretty physically tanky if you put enough defensive investment in it. And then if you're running like special defense, it just tanks every special hit ever. Like in semifinals, it just tanked Mega Diancie for days. Even when it clicked like terrain pulse and grassy terrain, that shit was hilarious. But it just did its job. I really like using Vaporeon. And it's a mon I've used quite a bit. I've used Tauren, Mega Scissor, Vaporeon, Chestnut like a lot. But this is probably the time where Vaporeon popped off the most for me. And obviously, because it caused like 3 forfeits this season, like I really can't say Vaporeon was bad at all. And that is it. I actually haven't recorded my finals match yet. But obviously that's gonna go up before this. But anything else I have to say about this season, I'll probably say that after my during finals. And it's just kind of weird to me that I finally won a chip, and it was with this team of all things. Like, if I had a complaint about this team, is that it doesn't really have a good win con. Like, Tauren, Mega Scissor, Hydreigon, they're pretty good win cons on their own, but the way I had my team built, it just wasn't really optimal to try to bring them. I think I more screwed up with some of my lower tier picks, being the mons that they were. Like, I got 0 use out of stuff like Chestnut and Sandslash, and I think Grass and Ground would have been really good if they were like higher tier picks. But there's just something about this team that's pretty prone to getting crit too. I mean, look at my mons; they're all just like a bunch of fat mons that don't really go for kills that often, other than like top 3 could literally do anything, plus like Heliusk. That is my offense. And if they aren't good in a matchup, I just don't have a good win con. And I think that's where most of the struggle of this team was. As much as I really liked how fat this team was, it just wasn't that great. I mean, it was really good, but in a way, it just wasn't the best thing ever. That's other than that. If I have anything else to say, I'll probably say that in my finals match. And I will see you guys later.